We praise him.
Yeah. Shalom, shalom. Giving all honor and praises to the Most High Yah and His Son Yahushua. Coming together on this Wednesday class to be edified. The name of the class is called Feast of First Fruits. We will be celebrating our Feast of First Fruits this Sunday, the first day of the week. Hope everybody been having a good week. Just kind of trying to come here to get edified in the Lord's word. First precept we're going to is Judges chapter 5 and verse 11. This is one of the main precepts that we stand on, highly stand on this, because keeping the commandments is how we make it to the kingdom. When you get there, I'll read that.
Judges chapter 5, verse 11. They that are delivered from the noise of archers.
That's those nuclear missiles, man. Read on.
In the place of drawing water.
That's us here in captivity, man. Read on.
There shall they rehearse the righteous act.
They said, there shall we rehearse the righteous act of the Lord. So keeping God's laws, that's something that set us apart from all Israel. From all Israel, the 2/3. You know,
and it said there, so that means not in Jerusalem, wherever we at in captivity. That's where we're supposed to be practicing the righteous act.
Gone on it.
Even the righteous acts toward the inhabitants of his village in Israel.
We don't.
Then shall the people of the Lord go down to the gate.
He said, then shall the people go down to the gates, because that's what we commanded to do, is to keep the commandments of the Most High God. So the Most High God got high holy days, man. He commanded us to celebrate his high holy days, man. What kind of God, in any kind of God that commands you to have a good time, man? Man, that's the kind of God I would want to serve all day long, man. But a lot of people, man, they look at it like, man, we can't keep those commandments. Well, God commanded us to have a good time too. You know, he not only keep his commandments, I mean, he says not grievous. Let's get into it, man. Let's go to Leviticus chapter 23. We'll start it. Read verse 1 so we can get a little context, and we'll drop down.
The book of Leviticus chapter 23, verse 1.
Mm-hmm.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel.
See, because the thing is, this high holy day is only for the children of Israel. It says, speaking to the children of Israel. Read on up.
And say unto them concerning the feast of the Lord.
It said, because now this whole chapter goes into concerning of the feast of the Lord. Read on up.
Which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations.
Mm-hmm.
Even these are my feasts.
He said, even these are his feasts. Now it goes into telling you about the Sabbath, it goes into the Passover, it goes down into the feast of first. It goes down into the first fruits. But what we touching on today is 10.
Leviticus chapter 23, verse 10. Speak unto the children of Israel.
Now he's telling them again, speak into the children of Israel. This Bible is for Israel and only for Israel, man. And the other nation gonna have to cleave to us in the kingdom, though. Read on up.
Speaking to the children of Israel, and say unto them, when ye be come into the land which I give unto you, and shall reap the harvest thereof, then ye shall bring a sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest unto the priest.
Now it said, now we supposed to bring the first, like our first substance or our first thing that when they divided the lots of land, we had to bring our first fruits or our first substance to the Lord. They done this even from the beginning. Matter of fact, before we get into this, I'm going to show y'all something. Let's go to Genesis chapter 4 right quick. Because they did this even from the beginning. People like to separate God's word, saying this is Mosaic law, ain't no such thing like that. All this Bible said, Christ said, lo, I come in the volume of the book, it was written of me. Go to Genesis chapter 4. We're going to start at verse 1 right quick.
Genesis chapter 4, verse 1.
Mm-hmm.
And Adam knew Eve, his wife.
He had relations with his wife. Read on.
And she conceived and bare Cain.
And she had a son named Cain. That was her first son. Read on.
And said, I have gotten a man from the Lord.
Now she appreciated that the Lord gave her a son. Read on.
And she again bare his brother Abel.
Now, that kills the notion. Guess what? That they said, oh, Cain and Abel were twins. No, they weren't twins. Cain was the oldest. Abel was his younger brother. Read on.
And Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground.
It's not. Abel was a keeper of the sheep. Cain was a tiller of the ground. Read on up.
verse 3, in process of time it came to pass
Mm-hmm.
that Cain brought of the first of the ground an offering unto the Lord. Slap. And in process of time it came to pass
Mm-hmm.
that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto the Lord.
Now you heard that it said that Cain brought the fruit of the ground to the Lord. It didn't say first. It said the fruit of the ground to the Lord. That was the first mistake. So that let you know that guess what? Even back then they was giving offering. To let you know that the laws was right. It was from the beginning. Read on up.
Verse 4. And Abel, he also brought of the firstlings of his flock.
Now you heard that he gave the firstlings of his flock. It didn't say he didn't say Abel gave of his flock. He said he gave of the firstling of his flock. Read on.
And of the fat thereof.
Read.
And the Lord had respect unto Abel and to his offering.
Now the Lord had respect unto Abel and his offering because Abel gave his first. Read up.
But unto Cain and to his offering he had not respect.
He didn't respect his offering because Cain just look. I'm raising these. I'm tilling the ground. Hey, look, he goes some fruit, Lord. You told me to give you offering. I'm gonna give you this. But guess what? If he feared God, guess what he would have done? He would have gave his first. He knew the commandment just like Abel did. Read on up.
And Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell.
Now his face all balled up like, man, look here, you don't respect my offering. Both of us gave our offering. Read on up.
But unto Cain and to his offering he had not respect.
Mm-hmm.
And Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell.
Read.
And the Lord said unto Cain, why art thou wroth?
He asked me, said, man, what's wrong with you? He basically said, what's wrong with you, Israel nigga? What's wrong with you? You got a problem? Read.
And why is thy countenance fallen?
He said, man, what? So why is you upset? Read on.
If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted?
Now, he said, if you do well, should you not be accepted? If you gave your first, would you not be accepted? Because the thing is, that's what's gonna take. That's what our Lord and Savior gonna come back. Obedience is better than sacrifice. And a lot of our people from the beginning, they don't like to be obedient. Read up.
And if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door.
So if the law wasn't there, then how can sin lie at the door? So guess what? The laws are there from the beginning because sin is the transgression of the laws.
Right.
1 John 3 and 4. Read on though up.
And unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him.
And he said, now, if you don't do well, guess what? Sin lied at the door, and sin gonna rule over you. And that's basically where you're going in. But let's go back. Well, I just wanted to touch into that point to let y'all know that guess what? Moses wasn't saying nothing different than what his forefathers were saying. The thing is, Moses was a mediator for us, just like Christ is gonna be the mediator for us. He's gonna be the real mediator with no blemishes, no stains. Guess what? Perfect. No breaking God's commandment, nothing. He's gonna be perfect for us, man. And we're gonna have to come into submission up under him. Every knee will bow, and every tongue will confess, man.
Yeah, that's what it will do.
Read up.
Verse 11 of Leviticus chapter 23.
Mm-hmm.
And he shall wave the sheep before the Lord to be accepted for you.
Mm-hmm.
On the morrow after the Sabbath, the priest shall wave.
Read it over again.
And he shall wave the sheep before the Lord.
That is, y'all know that instrument that y'all seen them where they cut the wheat down. That's the waving of the sheaf to cut the sheaf, and then they roll them up into the bundle or sheaf. But that's the waving is when he striking the fruit off the tree.
Read.
And he shall wave
it.
he shall wave the sheep before the Lord to be accepted for you. On the morrow after the Sabbath, the priest shall wave.
And now he said that the priest shall wave. Let's go get that right quick. Let's go get that wave off. Give me Exodus 29, verse 23. See, the thing is, we would give out, since he gave us our homeland, after he gave us land and stuff, he expected when we tilled the ground or when we kept our animals or whatever, he expected for us to give our offering to him. The thing is, back then we had the Levitical priesthood that we supposed to come bring our offering to, because they had no land, they had no lot, so they had no inheritance, but they stayed in everybody's land because they was a priest in everybody's land. Read it up.
Exodus chapter 29, verse 23.
Uh-huh.
And one loaf of bread and one cake of oil bread and 1 wafer out of the basket of the unleavened bread that is before the Lord.
That is before the Lord. Read on.
And thou shalt put all in the hands of Aaron.
See, he was supposed to put it into Aaron. Aaron was a Levitical priest. Read on.
And in the hands of his sons.
And his sons, because y'all knew about the children of Israel, Aaron and his sons was the Levitical priest in all the land. Read on.
And shall wave them for a wave offering before the Lord.
Because they was the one that gave the wave offering to the Lord. We wasn't able to do it because they were the priest and the high priest at the time. Y'all understand? Let's go back. Leviticus chapter 23.
Which one, 11 or 12? 12.
Verse, yeah, you give me verse 12, you know.
Leviticus chapter 23, verse 12. And ye shall offer that day when you wave the sheep and he lamb. A sheep and he lamb without blemish of the first year for a burnt offering unto the Lord.
Because everything that the Lord had required, he didn't require. I mean, the Lord don't want you to come give him like, if you gave your fruit, you think you won't give the Lord some mango fruits? Or you gonna give the Lord some mango animal, or you're gonna give him the best of the best. Man, look, the thing is, what you expect him to, you gonna give him anything, then you gonna expect everything? No, you got to give him the best. Guess what? If you want the best, you got to give the best, man. Read up.
Verse 13. And the meat offering thereof shall be 2 tenth deals of fine flour mingled with oil.
Now, this is just a breakdown on how they gave the offering to the high priest at the time. But the thing is, we going into first fruits, but we supposed to be rehearsing a righteous act. We don't have a Levitical priesthood, so the thing is, we just, like I say, the Bible, we going into rehearsing the righteous act, but we're going to touch into that a little bit more. Read on up.
An offering made by fire unto the Lord for a sweet savor.
Mm-hmm.
And the drink offering thereof shall be of wine, the 4th part of a hin.
Read.
And he shall, verse 14. And ye shall eat neither bread nor parched corn nor green ears until the selfsame day that ye have brought an offering unto your God.
Mm-hmm.
It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations.
It said, read it again up.
It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations.
So keeping the first fruit is a statute that we're supposed to be keeping out throughout our generation. Now, some things had been excluded because we're not in our homeland. Some things we don't have the Levitical high priest. So some things that we have is excluded, but we still must keep the righteous acts of having a feast of first fruits. We still have to do this. Go ahead.
That's what I'm glad I touched on that point, because we keep the feast of the first fruits, but we don't keep the offering that they did for the first fruits. That's the difference within that. Go ahead,
Come on that up. Read on up.
It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations.
Read on.
In all your dwellings.
It said this is supposed to be a statute to our generation, just like your fringes. This is a statute throughout your generations. You know, that's something that the Lord ordained for us to have throughout our generations. Matter of fact, give me Proverbs, hold your precept, give me Proverbs 3 and 9 right quick. So, all our forefathers, foremothers, we all kept it. When the Lord told us to do something, guess what? We went off, but the Lord had a remnant of people that were doing what he said to do too at all times. Just like even in the last days, he still, even when you think people going off and people doing this and that, the Lord got it. The Lord is the constructor of everything.
The example is you seeing it right here. It's a small group of people that's coming together to keep God's laws the best to our abilities.
Come on it. Read it up.
Proverbs 3 and 9. Honor the Lord with thy substance and with the first fruits of all thine increase.
It said, honor the Lord with thy substance and with the first fruits of all thy increase. See, the thing is, we just think about us in Israel. We don't have land. Most of us don't have land. We don't have gardens. We're not raising animals. So, but we do have substance. We do have things. You know, we can honor the Lord in a lot of different ways. But what you gonna give the Lord, just any old thing, or you gonna give what's his just due? You know what I mean? Because we all look for our just due. You know, is that penny to the kingdom? Because that's what our agreement was. That penny to the kingdom. Read. Go back up. Leviticus chapter 23, verse 13.
Leviticus
verse 14.
Leviticus 23:14. And ye shall eat neither bread, nor parched corn, nor green ears until the self same day that ye have brought an offering unto your God.
Mhm.
It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations in all your dwellings.
Read on.
And you shall count until you from the morrow after the Sabbath, from the day that ye brought the sheaf of the wave offering. 7 Sabbaths shall be complete.
It says 7 Sabbaths. How many 7 Sabbaths? It's like 49 days. Read on.
Even until the morrow after the 7 Sabbaths shall ye number 50 days.
So after the 7 Sabbath, you got one more day. That makes what? 50 days. That's when we having our first fruits.
And that's, you accumulate that by counting 50 days after the Passover.
Come on
So
that.
that's the how we keep that.
After the Sabbath.
After the Passover.
Yeah, after the Sabbath of the Passover.
Passover, yeah, that last day.
Come on it. Read on out.
And ye shall offer a new meat offering unto the Lord.
And you said you should offer a new meat offering to the Lord. Now, the thing is, this right here just give you a little basic breakdown of how the children of Israel, how they kept the Feast of First Fruit. They was bringing their offerings to the Lord. They was bringing the first links of their offerings, whether it be meat offerings or drink offerings. They was kind of giving you a breakdown on how they kept their Feast of First Fruit. But the thing is, how we look at the Feast of First Fruit, that people not realizing that we're actually the first fruit of the Lord too. And that's something that a lot of people in Israel don't get into. And we're going to kind of touch into that right here today. Let me get Jeremiah chapter 2 and verse 3 right quick. You got it.
Yeah. Because we do want to cover this because, we heard first fruits, but then when we get to the New Testament, we heard Pentecost. And we're going to read this out of the Zondervan Compact Bible Dictionary. This is a very important book that brothers and sisters need to have because, it's a lot of information that goes in there. A lot of it is true, but once you get more and more to understand, Esau, he kind of put little trickeries in there too. But this is where Pentecost comes from. This is out of the Zondervan Compact Bible Dictionary. It's the definition of Pentecost. The word derives from the Greek, from the 50th for the 50th day. So that's what the word Pentecost means. It means the 50th day. After, like we say, you come from Passover, so that's where they get that word Pentecost from. It says it was a Jewish feast of weeks, going into the same thing, variously called the Feast of Harvest. That's another name. Or the Day of First Fruits, which fell on the 50th day after the Feast of the Passover.
And let me say something. That's why I said Feast of Weeks, why we call it also Feast of Weeks, because what did he say? 7 Sabbaths. Because we was waiting on after we counted weeks, 7 weeks. That's why they call it also the Feast of Weeks, because that's how we got to it. We counted 7 weeks.
Come on it. Thing is, we try to make sure that we give all the information, even when we read. If we read any kind of thing, we want to make sure that we read our sources so people can go back and check the sources and everything that we have too. Let me go into explain on how we are Israel, we are the first fruits of the Lord too. Give me Jeremiah 2 and verse 3 right quick.
Jeremiah chapter 2, verse 3.
Mm-hmm.
Israel was holiness unto the Lord.
It said Israel was holiness because everybody know that we set apart people. If you go to Leviticus 20 and 26, it shows you that holy means separate. Read on.
And the first fruits of his increase.
And we the first fruits of his increase. See, that's the thing that's one of the things that make Feast of Fruits. Feast of First Fruits. Feast of First Fruits. That's one thing kind of make it symbolic to us because this is going into us too as the children of Israel. Read on.
All that devour him shall offend.
He said, now all the nations, everybody that devoured the Lord's first fruits, you're gonna offend the Lord, man. Which all the nations have done that, man. They devoured the Lord's first fruits, man. We the Lord's first fruit that, guess what? The same first fruit that he was trying to tell Cain about. The same thing he was telling Cain about, that look, if you do well, will it not be accepted? The same thing he was telling them that, guess what? Everybody, even the 2/3, everything that goes against the Lord on his of his first fruits, guess what? He has a problem. He have indignation with it. Read on up.
Evil shall come upon them, said the Lord.
He said, evil shall come upon them, man. That's what the Lord say, man. We don't make this thing up. We just read the precept. Give me James chapter 1 and verse 18. We ain't finna have a long class. It's just kind of a short class we want to touch on.
And these is like I was bringing out earlier. It's 3 high holy days that we must keep. And we know the feast of the Passover, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and the Feast of Pentecost. You know, there was 3 high holy days that everyone was commanded to do. You know, so that's what we're doing today, practicing this righteous verse.
The three high holy days. Let's go get there right quick, man. Let's get there right quick. Let's we got
Exodus was 23. I think they went 23 and 16.
23.
Start at verse 14, Officer Yard. Exodus chapter 23 and verse 14.
Exodus chapter 23, verse 14. 3 times thou shalt keep a feast unto me in the year.
So it's 3 times, and that's what it's going into, these 3 times of feast that we have to come and serve the Most High. Read on up.
Thou shalt keep the feast of unleavened bread.
The Feast of Unleavened Bread.
Thou shalt eat unleavened bread 7 days, as I commanded thee, in the time appointed of the month Abib. For in it thou camest out from Egypt, and none shall appear before me empty. And the feast of harvest, the first fruits of thy labor.
The what?
The first fruits of thy labor.
Going into Pentecost. There was also another one. And the Feast of Unleavened Bread is also going into the Feast of the Passover too. So that's what it's second one. Then the Feast of Pentecost is the third one that we must keep. Read on up.
And the feast of harvest, the first fruits of thy labor, which thou hast sown in the field, and the feast of ingathering, which is in the end of the year, when thou hast gathered in thy laborers out of the field.
So we must keep those 3. That is a must. Go ahead, Art.
Let me let's get a similitude real quick, y'all mind.
Go ahead, Art.
On that, remember when he tell us in the New Testament, he said you should know them by their fruits. That's because the first fruits normally is what? When you get the first fruits, it's normally a good fruit because it's the first fruit, the best fruit off the tree. But what we have in Israel also, that's why he said know them by their fruits, because when you look at somebody or you study from somebody, you'll know them by their fruits. If it's a good fruit, because it should be a good fruit, because we got Israel now, you look at their fruit, you're like, that didn't come off the first. That's some Cain fruit. That's some stuff that, Cain was eating a tomato while he was walking up there with a box of tomatoes to the Most High. It's something he picked up. He already, that wasn't the first. So that's why they're talking about that. When Yahweh is referring to that, you should know them by their fruits, because the first fruits should be good fruit. So that's what, go ahead.
Like, no, what I can say the best.
Yes, it should be that. So that's why he's asking you. We can go in a deep similitude on that. I was just bringing it out a little bit, but we'll do that another time. I just want to let y'all know that.
Come on it. And then I'm going to touch on it. Let me get James chapter 1 and verse 18 right quick. I'm going to touch on that right quick.
The book of James chapter 1, verse 18. Of his own will begat he us. Of his own will begat he us with the word of truth.
He said of his own, he said he begat with the word of the truth. Like John 10:27 said, it said sheep will hear his voice. They know him and they will follow him, right?
That we should be a kind of first fruits of his creature.
He said we should be a kind of first fruits of his creature. That's going into being reborn again. Putting off that old person, getting on to the new person. And that's one thing that Israel, that makes it so symbolic of the first fruits. And that's the reason why I'm glad I brought that precept out for us to be able to try to keep the first, for us to keep, this is one of the commandments for us to keep this first fruit.
And Most High is not accepting that old fruit. So you might as well leave that alone. I wouldn't even take it to him. So you want to be that born again person. Got rid of all that old stuff, all that other junk he was holding, let it go. Because he is not accepting that. There's gonna be some people trying to get in the kingdom, they're gonna be having a blunt in their pocket. held on to this. No, you should have left all that alone.
And let me correct myself right quick. Go to Deuteronomy chapter 16, verse 16. Real quick. Yeah, I gotta catch me on that. These are the three feasts. Because I forgot one very important one too. Because the Feast of Unleavened Bread goes into the Passover.
Passover, yeah.
But the Feast of Tabernacles, that's the
You
one.
didn't say that?
I went to
I
the
didn't
precept.
even catch it.
Yeah, I gotta catch me on that.
I didn't catch it.
I thought you said it.
Read that right quick, Officer Yard.
Deuteronomy 16 and 16. 3 times in a year shall all thy males appear before the Lord thy God in the place which he shall choose. In the feast of unleavened bread.
The what?
In the feast of unleavened
Going
bread.
into the Passover too. Read on up.
And in the feast of weeks.
Which is Pentecost. Read on up.
And in the feast of tabernacles.
And in the Feast of Tabernacles. So those are the three high holy days that we must keep. And like we say, we getting together right now, trying to plan and get these things together. We'll be back after celebrating the Feast of Tabernacles, you know.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
and we will be getting them tents. So y'all better know that we are gonna be out there in the woods.
Yeah.
So get y'all mind right.
That's my favorite one. Anyway.
Yeah, it is. Let me finish that out.
Yeah, finish that out. I'm gonna
That's
that's last precept.
And they shall not appear before the Lord empty.
They said, and read that over again.
And they shall not appear before the Lord empty.
Now, he said, during those feasts, you shall not appear before the Lord empty. Give me Sirach chapter
Hold on,
35.
finish that out. Go to 17.
Please.
Go ahead. Hey. Go ahead.
Every man shall give as he is able, according to the blessings of the Lord, thy God, which he had given thee.
Mhm.
Break that down. No.
So see,
Everybody not gonna have the same amount to give. That's why we always ask brothers and sisters, you know what I'm saying, that are in better situations money-wise, you know what I'm saying, to help us out. Like we got brothers that's trying to wake up now that might be football players or might be whatever the case may be. We ask some brothers to help us out because it said, which God gave you the ability, some of us hurting. Some of us living all right though. We know that. Some of my brothers are living better than others. But what you have, if it's $1, you give $1. If you got one piece of chicken to bring that one. You got a bag, you got enough to bring 2 bags, bring that bag.
And
But that's the first
and
one.
if you don't got money, so if you can bake some cookies,
Right.
Yeah.
or bring some water, the thing of, that's all we do. Cause like they say, when if everybody brings something, we got a party. You know what I'm saying? We got a feast, we got a celebration. If everybody brings something, it ain't got to be money. If everybody brings, okay, you got corn, they got meat. Now guess what? We got a dinner now.
Let me get this last precept. Sirach chapter 38, chapter 35, verse 38. This last precept.
because this is very important too for the feast, going into the etiquettes on how you're supposed to carry yourself at the feast. And you don't want to come empty-handed like what we bring, because we doing this as a nation of people. Go ahead, Art.
Yeah, 35 and 8.
The book of Sirach, chapter 35, verse 8. Give the Lord his honor with a good eye.
Now you're supposed to give the Lord his honor with a good eye, man. Read on.
And diminish not the first fruits of thine hand.
And now don't diminish the first fruits of thy hand, because some people they be want to give such and such, they ain't getting nothing but that. No, you got to give with a good eye, man. And let all your works be good. Read on, huh?
And all thy gifts shew a cheerful countenance.
Now, in all your gifts, show a good, cheerful countenance. Read on, huh?
And dedicate thy tithes with gladness.
Read.
Give unto the Most High according as he giveth enriched thee.
He said, now give to him like we just broke that down. Give to what the Lord blessed you with, man. The Lord blessed you to give a little bit more. Hey, that's just what it is, man. The Lord bless you.
And he said, give with a good confidence. I don't know if y'all ever done it. If everybody ever gave you something like, here, you know what I'm saying? You be like, well, you can have it back. I don't even want it.
That's right. Read on, huh?
Give unto the Most High according as he hath enriched thee. And as thou hast gotten, give with a cheerful eye.
Give with a cheerful eye, man. Read on.
For the Lord recompenseth and will give thee 7 times as much.
And said the Lord will give you 7 times as much, man. And with that, we say shalom. Give me a long. Those that's watching on Facebook, go to YouTube, subscribe to YouTube. Those that's giving to the GoFundMe page, all praise to the Most High. For the Most High blessing y'all to be able to give to the GoFundMe. Support the cause, man. One day we might end up in your city or a city near you, so we can be able to bring the Lord's word.
Yeah, we sorry for bringing this word a little late. You know, we just got behind on the rest of the computer.
Technical
The
difficulties.
technical
you
difficulties.
know how Esau be playing around with the technology. Read that out.
Let me read this law. Deuteronomy chapter 16, verse 16, what we went over. This is a law. We tell brothers and sisters to keep the law, so we want to bring some of these laws out so that they can know them. It says, 3 times in a year shall all thy males appear before the Lord thy God, in the place which he shall choose, in the feast of weeks, in the feast of unleavened bread, and in the feast of weeks, and in the feast of tabernacles, and they shall not appear before the Lord empty. So that's letting us know that we got to come together and practice these righteous rehearsals and keep the feast of Pentecost that's coming up.
And then that's another thing too. Did he not choose this area to choose us to be here in this place here? That was a choice he made. It ain't nothing we chose to do.
That's right.
So that's where he got us. So we need to be practicing it where we at now.
So on that, we say shalom.
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 And